My name's William Harlan, but back in those frozen hellholes of the Ardennes, they called me preacher. Not because I was holy, hell, I hadn't set foot in a church since I was a kid in Ohio, but because I'd stand there in the sleet and snow, barking orders like some backwoods sermon on Judgment Day. Move your asses or the devil's got a new batch of sinners, I'd holler, and it'd get 'em going. 38 years old by the winter of 1944, and I'd seen enough to know that war wasn't about glory or flags. It was about keeping the sorry sons of bitches under your command from getting their guts spilled across some Belgian mud. I'd lost count of the patrols, the ambushes, the nights where the only thing between you and a Jerry sniper was the thickness of your helmet liner. And now, with the Bulge kicking off like a bad hangover, we were down to bones in the 101st Airborne. Screaming eagles, my ass. We were screaming, all right, but it was from the cold, chewing through our boots. It was December, right around the 12th, when the truck rolled up to our assembly point near Bastogne. The air smelled like diesel and wet wool, and the ground was a slurry of half-frozen slop that sucked at your galoshes like it wanted to keep you there forever. We'd been pulling back from the line what was left of us after the first kraut push, and the brass was scraping the bottom of the barrel for replacements. I was leaning against a splintered pine, nursing a cigarette that tasted like horse shit, when the canvas flap parted and out tumbled this kid, fresh as a daisy in a graveyard. His name was Thomas Reilly. Thomas, for Christ's sake. Like he was headed to a library, not a meat grinder. 19. Straight out of some nowhere town in West Virginia, or so his dog tag said. They called him Tex Down and Basic, I guess because he talked with that hillbilly drawl that made everything sound like a cowboy yarn. But he looked about as Texan as a snowball, skinny as a fence post, with eyes that darted like a rabbit's, and a uniform so crisp it could have cut glass. The rest of us? We were walking rags. Beards crusted with frost, pants patched with whatever scrap you could scrounge, and boots that leaked like sieves. I took one look at him and knew. This was trouble wrapped in olive drab. "Riley, front and center," I barked, flicking my butt into the muck. He jumped like I'd cracked a whip, sloshing over with his pack banging against his knees. The boy was loaded down like a Christmas mule. Rifle slung wrong over his shoulder, entrenching tool dangling loose, and that M1 Garand of his looking like it was still in the armorer's grease. I could smell the new leather on his boots from 3 feet away. "Sarge," he stammered, snapping a salute that wobbled like a drunk at last call. His hand was shaking, cold probably, but I knew better. It was fear, pure and simple, the kind that turns greenhorns into ghosts. I circled him slow, like a dog sniffing out a weak spot. The veterans, and what was left of my squad, watched from the tree line. There was Doc Jenkins, our medic, patching a frostbite blister on his own thumb with a grin that said he'd seen this dance before. Deadeye Malone, the sharpshooter from Philly, was cleaning his Garand with that methodical tick-tick of the bolt, his good eye squinting like he was sighting a target. And Sparky Ruiz, the wiry kid from Brooklyn, who'd wired more field phones than I'd had hot meals, leaning on his bar like it was a crutch. They didn't say a word, but their eyes did the talking. Another boot to babysit, another weight on our backs, when we could barely haul our own. "Son," I said, stopping right in his face, close enough to see the acne scars under that fresh shave. "You look like you just fell off the chow line at Fort Benning. This ain't basic anymore. This is the line, and the line don't give a damn about your feelings." He nodded too quick, eyes wide as saucers. I jabbed a finger at his rifle. "Unsling that piece. Let's see if you can hold it without dropping it like a hot potato." He fumbled with the strap. Damn thing was twisted, and the Garand slipped right out of his grip, clattering into the mud at my feet. The squad let out a low chuckle like distant thunder. Riley's face went the color of boiled lobster. "Sorry, Sarge, it just... Pick it up," I growled, my voice low so only he heard the edge. "And wipe that crap off before you jam the action. You think a kraut's gonna wait while you polish your toy?" He scrambled, gloved hands slipping in the slop. And when he finally got it back on his shoulder, the sling was still backwards. I shook my head. Christ, what were they sending us these days? Kids who couldn't tell a bayonet from a butter knife? We didn't have time for niceties. Brass wanted us moving by dusk. Reinforce a roadblock outside town before the panzers turned it into a scrapyard. I got the squad geared up, barking orders like it was Sunday drill. "Malone, you take point. Ruiz, humping that bar, keep it dry. Doc, eyes on the flanks." Riley trailed behind like a lost pup, his pack straps digging red welts into his shoulders already. Every step he took was a symphony of squeaks and clanks, canteen banging against his helmet, entrenching tool rattling like maracas. In the woods, that noise was a death sentence. "Quiet down back there, Reilly," I snapped over my shoulder. "Now you sound like a one-man parade. Jerry's got ears like a fox." "Yes, sir," he mumbled, trying to cinch everything tighter, but it just made the mess worse. By the time we hit the tree line overlooking the drop to the foxholes, sweat was beading on his forehead despite the bite in the air. The Ardennes in December. God, it was a bastard. Snow flurried down in fits, turning the world white and gray, and the wind howled through the pines like banshees. We'd dug in shallow the night before, just enough to keep the wind off our backs, but it wasn't much. Barbed wire strung hasty across the front, a couple of 30 cals mounted on tripods, and prayers that the 57 Latrines AT guns back at HQ would show up before the Tigers did. I dropped into the command hole, a knee-deep scrape with sandbags piled crooked, and waved Reilly down beside me. "You're home sweet home, kid. Grab that E-tool and make it deeper. We're pulling night watch." He stared at the hole like it was a grave, then shrugged off his pack. The tool unfolded with a metallic snick, and he started hacking at the frozen earth, or trying to. The ground was hard as iron, crusted over from the thaw-freeze cycle, and his swings were wild, more show than substance. Clang, scrape, a handful of dirt every 10 minutes. I watched him for a bit, then lit another smoke. "Faster, Reilly. You dig like that, you'll be sleeping on your feet when the shells start flying." He grunted, putting his back into it, but it was pathetic. After 20 minutes, he'd barely deepened it by 6 inches, and his hands were raw under the gloves, knuckles white from gripping the handle. "Sarge," he panted, wiping his brow with a muddy sleeve, "this ground, it's like rock. Back home in the hollers, we had softer soil for root cellars, but this—" "Back home?" I cut him off, voice like gravel. "This ain't a holler picnic, son. This is the Bulge, and the only cellar you're digging is the one that'll keep your head attached. Keep at it." He went back to it, but I could see the defeat settling in his shoulders. The squad filtered in, dropping gear with the ease of men who'd done this dance 100 times. Malone slid into his scrape across the way, sighting his scope into the mist. Ruiz checked his bar's feed, the belt ammo gleaming dull under the overcast. Doc passed around sulfa packets. For the imaginary wounds boys. And even that got a weak laugh. Night fell quick, like a blanket yanked over your head. We rotated watches 2 up, 4 down, huddled in our holes with ponchos pulled tight. The cold was the real enemy that first night. Seeped into your bones, made your fingers numb stubs that couldn't feel the trigger. I took the midnight shift with Reilly, figuring I'd break him in slow. Or maybe just watch him crack. We crouched there, backs to the frozen dirt, M1s across our laps. The woods were dead quiet, save for the drip of melting snow and the occasional crack of a branch under ice. "So, kid," I said after a while just to fill the silence, "what's a coal miner's boy doing trading a pick for $1,000? West Virginia's got enough hills without borrowing ours." He shifted, the movement sending a cascade of dirt down his collar. "My pa worked the seams in Logan County, Sarge. Taught me a thing or two about tunnels and blasts. Said the Army'd make a man of me." His voice was soft, laced with that mountain twang, but there was a hitch in it, like he was reciting lines from a recruitment poster. I snorted. "A man, huh? Well, your pa's got brass ones. But this ain't blasting coal. It's blasting at boys just like you, only with funny accents. You ever fired that thing in anger?" He shook his head, eyes fixed on the dark like it might bite. "Thought so. First time's a bitch. Feels like kicking a door down and finding the devil on the other side." He swallowed hard, and I could hear it over the wind. "Sarge, what if I freeze up? What if I can't—" "You will," I lied. "'Cause what else do you say? Or you won't, and one of us will drag your carcass back. But don't think on it. Thinking's for officers with maps." He nodded, but his grip on the rifle tightened till the wood creaked. Poor bastard. I remembered my first Normandy 1944 Omaha Beach. Waves crashing red, boys screaming for their mothers. I'd puked my guts out behind a hedgehog, but I kept firing, kept moving. This kid? He looked like he'd shatter at the first whistle. Dawn broke gray and grudging, the light filtering through the canopy like dirty dishwater. We broke out sea rations, Spam and crackers that tasted like wet cardboard, and I made Reilly share his with Malone. Teamwork, kid. Your Ks are fresher than ours. He handed it over without a peep, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. Homesick, probably. Later, while we waited for the lieutenant's sit-rep, he pulled a crumpled letter from his breast pocket. Airmail envelope, pink as a valentine, addressed in looping script. From my girl, Ellie, he said, unfolding it careful, like it was made of glass. Says the harvest was good this year. Corn tall as a man. The squad went quiet. Ruiz paused mid-bite. Doc raised an eyebrow. Me? I felt a twist in my gut, the old familiar one. Letters from home. They were lifelines and anchors, all at once. Kept you human, but reminded you what you were fighting for, or running from. Put it away, Reilly, I said, sharper than I meant. Ain't no harvest here, just mud and lead. He folded it quick, stuffing it back, face flushing again. Malone clapped him on the shoulder, gentle for Deadeye, and muttered, Read it later, kid, when there's light. But the light never came easy. By noon, the first shells started whispering in. Not the big barrage yet, just probing fire. 88s lobbing lazy from the ridgeline a click east. The whistle built slow, then cracked like God's own whip as they buried into the earth 50 yards out. Dirt fountained up, pattering back like hail. Incoming! I roared, diving for the hole's lip. The squad piled in, Malone sighting his piece, Ruiz chambering around in the bar with that heavy ka-chunk. Reilly! He froze, stood there in the open, M1 half-raised, eyes locked on the smoke plume like a deer in headlights. The next shell screamed closer, and I lunged, grabbed his collar with one hand, yanked him down as the world erupted. Shrapnel whined overhead, a chunk glancing off my helmet with a ting that rang in my teeth. We hit the bottom together, him sprawled across my legs, gasping like a fish. Move, damn you! I shoved him off, heart hammering. The barrage walked past us, chewing up the wire and splintering trees, but it could have been right on top. He lay there a second, chest heaving, then scrambled up, mud caked to his cheek. Sarge, I didn't hear it coming. His voice cracked, high and boyish. You hear it next time, or you don't hear anything, I snarled, peeking over the rim. No counterfire yet, the AT guns were still ghosts, but the air hummed with that post-blast tang, ozone, and burnt powder. The squad was unscathed, thank Christ, but I could see it in their faces. The kid was a liability. One freeze-up in the wrong spot, and we'd all pay. Doc patched a shallow cut on Ruiz's arm from flying rock, but his eyes flicked to Reilly, pity mixed with wariness. Afternoon dragged into a patrol. Lieutenant Hargrove, green as Reilly, West Pointer with a map and a mustache that screamed promotion, wanted eyes on a crossroads half a mile north. Kraut's pushing armor that way, Sarge. Take 4 men, report back. Hargrove was solid enough, but he talked like he was briefing Ike, all clipped and precise. I nodded, grabbed Malone, Ruiz, and, God help me, Reilly. You stick to me like glue, kid. No wandering. We slipped into the woods, file single, boots soft in the needle duff. The pines loomed tall, branches heavy with snow that dumped in clumps at every gust. Malone led, ghosting ahead, his Garand, an extension of his arm. I could hear Reilly behind me, breathing too loud, steps crunching twigs he should have seen. Watch your feet, I hissed. This ain't a stroll in Central Park. Sorry, Sarge. But sorry didn't cut it. We crested a rise, bellies low, and there it was, the crossroad. A frozen scar through the white, empty but fresh tracks scarred the snow. Tread marks, wide and angry, Panther or Mark IV. Malone glassed it with his binoculars, whispering back, Jerry Convoy, recent, heading east, toward the river. Good intel, but as we pulled back, Reilly's boot caught a root. Down he went, sliding ass first into a drift, his pack spilling like a gutted fish. Canteen rolled free, clinking against a rock, loud as a bell in the hush. I froze, every nerve screaming. Malone dropped prone, scanning. Ruiz cursed under his breath in Spanish, and then, crack. A single shot, high and sharp, splintering bark, 10 yards left. Sniper. Down! I tackled Reilly into the snow, the cold shocking through my coat as we burrowed. The bullet had missed him by inches, gouging the tree where his head had been. Another crack, closer, whining off stone. Malone returned fire. Ping of the Grand's clip ejecting, then boom, 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 deliberate. Got him ranging, he muttered. I hauled Reilly up by his lapels, his face ashen, lips blue. You hear that, kid? That's your guardian angel quitting. Move! We scrambled back, zigzagging through the underbrush, shots nipping at our heels like angry bees. Ruiz laid suppressive with the bar, the 30 ripping chunks from trunks. We made it to cover, a rocky outcrop, without more lead in our hides, but my blood was fire. Reilly slumped against the stone, retching into the snow. I tripped, Sarge. I didn't mean... Save it. I lit a smoke with shaking hands, the flame dancing in the wind. Malone reported clean, no pursuit, but the damage was done. We'd stirred the nest, and for what? A boot's clumsiness. Back at the holes, Hargrove took the news stone-faced. Tracks confirm armor push. Good work, Sarge. But his eyes lingered on Reilly, and I knew he'd heard the whispers. Evening brought chow and a dressing down. I pulled Reilly aside, away from the fire's glow. A pitiful thing of green wood that smoked more than it warmed. Listen up, son. You're green, and green gets men killed. That stunt today? Cost us surprise. Maybe a man if that sniper had better aim. You want to make it? Shut your mouth, watch your step, and learn fast. Or I'll bury you myself before Jerry does. He nodded, eyes downcast, but there was a spark there. Hurt, yeah, but something stubborn, too. West Virginia coal, I figured. Tough under the soft. I'll do better, Sarge. Promise. Promises. I'd heard 'em all. That night, as shells rumbled distant like thunder on the Rhine, I lay in my hole listening to him snore. Shallow, fitful. The squad was quiet, no ribbing, no stories. Just the weight of another mouth to feed, another trigger to trust. Ike was back in Versailles, moving pins on a map, while we froze our balls off holding this godforsaken road. Patton was roaring south with his Third Army, promising to kick Jerry's teeth in, but down here in the foxholes, it was just us. And this kid, Thomas Reilly, who looked at the stars peeking through the clouds like they owed him answers. Next morning, the real fun started. Hargrove's orders: fortify the position. More wire, deeper holes, and demo charges if we could scrounge them. Reilly got latrine duty. Dig a slit trench out back, away from the line. Yeah, make it deep, kid, I said, tossing him the E-tool. And don't half-ass it. Nobody wants to squat in a puddle. He trudged off, shoulders slumped, hacking at the permafrost like it was personal. I turned to the squad. All right, you sorry lot, wire detail. Malone, Ruiz, string it tight. Doc, inventory the med kits. We're in for a long haul. They moved, efficient as a well-oiled Grand, while I sketched positions in the frost on my notepad. The Ardennes was a sniper's dream. Dense woods, rolling hills, perfect for Jerry's tricks. Rommel would have loved it, the desert fox, laying ambushes like a chess master. But we weren't foxes, we were eagles, clipped and grounded. Hours passed. The sun climbed weak, mocking us with its light but no heat. Ruiz hummed an old tune under his breath, something about Maria in the Bronx, as he twisted barbs. Malone sighted lanes of fire, muttering about windage. Doc sorted morphine threats, his hands steady as a surgeon's. Me? I paced, ears tuned to the woods. And then around noon it came. The rumble. Low at first, like thunder in the gut, building to a growl that shook the snow from branches. Tracks, big ones. Mount up, I yelled. Diving for the 30. The squad scrambled, gars chambered, bar fed. Reilly burst from the rear, E-tool still in hand, face smeared with dirt. Sarge, the hole, it's... No time. A panther nosed through the tree line, turret swiveling lazy, its long 75mm gun probing. Behind it, infantry. Gray helmets bobbing, MP40s glinting. The AT gun we needed was a dream. We had rifles and guts. Malone fired first, crack, the Grand's report sharp as a slap. A Jerry dropped, clutching his knee, but the tank kept coming, treads chewing earth. Shells screamed, the Panther's Coke's MG chattering, stitching the wire to shreds. We answered, Ruiz's bar-hosing lead, Doc popping shots from his carbine. I squeezed off rounds, the M1 bucking against my shoulder, that familiar ping as the clip ejected empty. Hit one, missed two. Standard odds. But the tank bore down, unstoppable. Its front glacis shrugging off our fire like rain. Reilly stood frozen again, just off the line, E-tool dangling. Get down, you idiot, I roared, but he didn't. Instead, he dropped the tool and bolted. Not away, but toward his half-dug latrine, a shallow scar 20 yards rear. What the hell? The Panther's turret traversed, gun muzzle yawning black, and I braced for the boom. It didn't come. The tank lurched, slewed sideways with a metallic screech, like nails on God's chalkboard. Smoke belched from its tracks, thick and acrid. It ground to a halt, turret jamming wild, as if the earth itself had grabbed it. The crew bailed. 3 shadows tumbling out, cut down by Malone's fire before they hit dirt. We poured it on then, the squad surging forward in a ragged wave. Gaps in the trees, Jerry infantry scattering like roaches. Ruiz flanked left, Bar barking. Doc covered right. I advanced center, reloading on the move. Clip in, bolt home. The Panther sat there, immobilized, a smoking hulk blocking the road like a drunk at a bar. When the echo died, we circled it cautious. The front track was shattered, chewed through by something. Jagged metal, buried deep in the bogey. And there, panting in the snow, was Reilly. His hands black with dirt, eyes wild. "The hole, Sarge," he gasped. "I was digging. Hit a soft spot. Buried some rocks and roots under the surface. When it rolled over, must have caught the track just right." I stared at him, then at the pit. Now a crater, the tank's weight having collapsed it into a trap. Dumb luck? Or that miner's instinct, knowing where the ground gave way? The squad gathered, breaths fogging, staring too. Malone whistled low. Kid turned a shitter into a tank trap. But I wasn't buying it yet. Luck was a fickle bitch, and we'd almost paid for his green. "Get your rifle, Reilly," I said, voice flat, "and stay close. Next time, dig deeper, or don't dig at all." He nodded, grabbing his Garand from where it had fallen. But I saw the squad's looks change, just a hair, from burden to... what? A question mark. That night, around the fire, fed with splintered crates and guarded fierce, the talk turned. Ruiz poked the embers. "That Panther? One less cat in the woods. Thanks to the latrine kid." Laughter rippled, thin but real. Doc passed the canteen, coffee laced with a splash of something stronger. Reilly sat on the edge, quiet, nursing his mug. I watched him, smoke curling from my Chesterfield. The Bulge was grinding us. Jerry throwing everything. Panzers, Volkssturm kids barely shaving. Weather like the devil's breath. Bradley was out there somewhere, the soldier's general, trying to hold the line without turning us to paste. But here, it was personal. This kid had stumbled into saving our skins, but stumbles don't win wars. He was still green, still a risk, and in my gut I knew. Risks got men killed. As the fire died to coals, I pulled him aside again. "Don't get cocky, son. That was luck. Tomorrow, it's skill or nothing." He met my eyes, that stubborn spark brighter. "Yes, Sarge. But back home, we say luck's when preparation meets opportunity." I grunted, turning away. Preparation? The boy couldn't lace his boots right. But as I crawled into my bag, the cold seeping in, I couldn't shake it. The hole he'd dug, shallow, half-assed, had stopped a tank cold. Maybe there was more to Thomas Reilly than mud and shakes. Or maybe I was just tired. Either way, the war didn't care. And neither did I. Not yet. The morning after the Panther got itself a dirt nap in Reilly's half-assed latrine, the world woke up meaner than usual. Snow had crusted overnight, turning the forest floor into a treacherous sheet of white that hid roots and rocks like Jerry hid mines. My bones ached from the cold, that deep in the marrow kind that made you question why you ever left the farm back in Ohio. 38 going on 60, with scars from Sicily still itching under my shirt. Shrapnel souvenirs from a 105 Mitsubishi that decided my foxhole needed redecorating. We'd patched the wire where the tank's cokes had chewed it. Malone sighting new fields of fire, while Ruiz test-fired the bar to shake off the frost in the barrel. Doc was inventorying again, muttering about how morphine went fast when boys started screaming for real. And Reilly? He was off to the side, cleaning his Garand with that wide-eyed focus of a kid who'd just dodged the Reaper but didn't know why. The squad gave him space. No more laughs at his expense, but no backslaps either. That tank trap had bought him a reprieve, but in this war, reprieves were like sea rations. They kept you going, but they didn't fill the hole. Hargrove showed up around 0800, trudging through the drifts with his runner in tow, map case tucked under one arm like it held the secrets to Berlin. The lieutenant was 24, tops, fresh from replacement depot, with that West Point polish that made you wonder if he'd ever smelled cordite up close. His helmet sat straight, chin strap buckled proper, and his boots were shined enough to signal aircraft. "Morning, preacher," he said, voice clipped like he was reading from a manual. "I sit, Rep?" I straightened up from the command hole, knocking snow from my gloves. "Quiet overnight, sir. One probe yesterday. Panther and a platoon of foot. We immobilized it, no casualties." I jerked a thumb at the smoking wreck, still belching faint wisps where the engine had cooked off. "Tracks heading east, like you figured. No follow-up yet." He nodded, unfolding the map on a flattish stump, the paper crinkling loud in the hush. We gathered round, me, Malone, Ruiz, Doc, and Reilly, hanging back like he wasn't sure if he rated. The chart was a mess of grease pencil lines and smudges, our positions marked in red, Jerry's estimated in blue, with arrows showing the Bulge's swell like a tumor on the line. Bastogne was a pinprick south, holding like a mule, but the Panzers were probing north and west, trying to split us like cordwood. "Ike's got the whole shebang in a sling," Hargrove said, tapping a spot. "Patton's third is grinding up from the south. Old Blood and Guts himself promised to have us hot chow by Christmas. But till then, we hold this road. Brass wants eyes on Hill 208. His finger stabbed a contour line, a humped ridge about 1,000 yards northeast, shrouded in fog that clung like smoke from a bad cigar. "Jerry's got spotters up there, calling fire on the crossroads. If we blind 'em, we buy the column time." I grunted, squinting into the mist. Hill 208, Christ, it was a bastard. Steep as a church roof, choked with pines and boulders, perfect for a MG nest or worse. We'd scouted it loose yesterday, but close in meant crawling through open ground under that whiteout. "Need a patrol, sir?" Malone's got the eyes for it. Hargrove shook his head. "Not a patrol, a wire run. String a field phone to the crest, get me real time on their guns. One man, light and quiet. In and out before noon." He glanced around the circle, eyes lingering on each face. Malone shifted, uncomfortable. Deadeye was a ghost in the woods. But even he knew a solo creep up that slope was rolling dice with loaded bones. Ruiz crossed himself subtle, muttering something Spanish under his breath. Doc just raised an eyebrow like he'd already mentally packed the bandages. My gut twisted. One man? In this soup? It was suicide dressed as orders. But Hargrove was brass, and brass didn't get dirty. I scanned the squad, weighing it. Send Malone, and I risked my best shot. Irreplaceable. The kind of steady trigger that saved your ass when the world went to hell. Ruiz with the bar. Too noisy, too heavy. Doc? Hell no, we needed him breathing. That left Reilly. The kid stood there, shoulders hunched against the wind, Garand slung proper for once, but his eyes, wide, uncertain, screamed green. Yesterday's luck didn't change that. He was still the boot, the one who'd freeze or fumble and get a 98K round through the brain pan. But sending a vet on this? That was trading gold for scrap. And deep down, in the part of me that had buried too many boys, I saw a way out. Clean it up quick before he dragged us all under. War wasn't kind, and neither was I. "Reilly," I said, voice flat as the map. "You heard the man. Grab a TA-1 phone, 500 yards of wire, and your E-tool. Crawl that ridge, string it tight, and hole up. Report what you see. Tanks, guns, the Kaiser's ghost if he shows. Don't call unless it's gold." The squad went still. Malone's good eye narrowed, a flicker of something like pity crossing his face. Ruiz looked away, busying himself with his ammo pouch. Doc cleared his throat but said nothing. Medics knew when to shut up. Reilly blinked, mouth opening like a landed fish. "Me, Sarge? Alone? But You heard me, Private." I stepped close, voice low so only he caught the edge. "This is your chance to prove you're more than a latrine digger. Or you ain't. Gear up." His face drained of color, going paler than the snow, but he nodded, jerky, like a puppet with cut strings, hands shaking as he unslung his pack, rummaging for the phone kit. The TA-1 was a clunky bastard, black box with a hand-crank generator, wires spooling from a reel like a fisherman's line. He clipped it to his belt, tested the crank with a whir that set my teeth on edge, then shouldered the extra spool. 500 yards, enough to reach the crest if he didn't snag every bush. Hargrove watched, neutral as a statue, Good man, report direct to me on this line. He scribbled a frequency scribble on a scrap, handing it over. Reilly took it, fingers fumbling the paper into his pocket. As the kid trudged off toward the tree line, boots sinking calf deep, wire dragging a faint trail in the snow, I turned to the squad. Eyes sharp. He stirs anything, we cover. But in my head, it was different. Stir something? Kid like that, he'd be lucky to make 50 yards without tripping a wire or silhouetting himself against the sky. The fog was thickening, rolling down from the ridge like God's own curtain, muffling sound and turning friend to shadow. Perfect for a ghost or a grave. Malone sidled up as we broke for positions. Sarge, that hill, it's a death trap. Kid's got stones, but he's greener than puke. You sure? I lit a Chesterfield, the match flaring brief in the gray. Stones don't count if they shatter on contact, Deadeye. He's got the job. We got the line. But his words hung, a hook in my gut. Sure, hell, I was counting on him shattering. One less worry, one less freeze-up in the next push. I'd seen it before. Normandy, a kid from Boston named O'Malley, froze on a beach run and caught a burp from an MG-42. Buried him with his rosary, told his ma he died a hero. Lies we tell to sleep. We settled in, the morning dragging like a wounded man. Shells popped distant, 88s dueling our 105s. The reports echoing flat off the hills. No direct fire on us yet, but the air hummed with that pre-storm tension like the woods were holding their breath. Ruiz cleaned his bar again, the links clinking soft. Doc passed out salt tablets. For the sweat you ain't breaking yet, and we chewed 'em dry, gritty as regret. I paced the holes, ears straining for the crank of that phone or the chatter of Jerry finding a target. Nothing. Just wind hissing through the pines, dumping snow in wet clumps. By 1000, the fog was soup thick, visibility down to 20 yards. Perfect for moving if you knew the ground. I didn't expect the call. Figured Reilly'd make 100, maybe 2, then panic. Drop the wire, bolt back, or worse, hunker and pray. Either way, problem solved. Clean. No blood on my hands direct. War's a machine, choose the weak first. That's what I told myself, staring at the ridgeline where the white swallowed him whole. Hargrove radioed from battalion, crackle of the SCR 536, his voice tinny. Preacher, status on the wire? Out on the hill, sir. No word yet. I kept it neutral, but inside the clock ticked. Every minute up there was a minute closer to a patrol stumbling on him, or a sniper glassing his trail. Understood, keep the line hot. Click. Hot. Yeah, right. The only heat was from my smoke, burning down to the filter. The squad felt it too, the itch of waiting. Malone glassed the fog from his scrape, muttering about angles. Can't see shit, Sarge. If Jerry's up there, they're ghosts. Ruiz nodded, feeding rounds into a spare mag. Kid better be a ghost too. Doc chuckled dark. Ghosts don't crank phones. He'll call when he wets himself. I shot him a look. Stow it. He's doing his job. But the words tasted like ash. Job. That's what we called it. The grind that ground you down. I'd assigned worse in Sicily. A Sicilian kid, Gino something, to scout a vineyard that turned out mined. Didn't come back. Told the CO he volunteered. Lies again? Noon crept in, gray as a hangover. We broke for chow, crackers and cheese spread that glued your teeth like mortar. Reilly's share sat untouched in my pack. No point wasting it. I was picking at mine when the phone jangled, shrill like a cat in a ringer. The TA-1 hooked to our set in the command hole. Squad froze, mid-bite. I lunged for it, cranking the generator, whir, voice tight. Eagle Nest, this is Preacher! Report. Static hissed, then a breath. Ragged, close. Sarge. It's Reilly. I'm on the crest. His voice was whisper-thin, edged with wind or shakes. Alive. Damn. I gripped the handset harder. Sit, Rep Private. What you got? Pause, paper rustle. 2 nests, Sarge. MG-42s, dug in with sandbags. Crews of 4 each facing south. No tanks yet, but tracks below, fresh. Half-track maybe, offloading crates. Ammo, looks like. And observers. 3, with binoculars. Spotting for the 88s. I whistled low. Gold, all right. Good work. Wire secure? Yes, sir. Buried it shallow where I could. Dug a scrape. Miner's trick, soft spot under the rocks. A hitch, like a laugh gone sour. So cold as hell up here. Hold position. Report movement. Out. I hung up, heart thumping odd. The kid had made it. Not just made it, delivered. Malone leaned in. He up? Yeah. Eyes on the nests. Hargrove will love this. I radioed it up. The LT's response, a sharp, Roger, Artie, on the way. Minutes later, the earth growled. Our 105s from the battery south, shells arcing invisible into the fog. Whoop, whoop. Impacts rattling the wire like dice in a cup. Screams faint, German curses carried on the wind. Reilly's line crackled again. Direct hits, Sarge. One nest smoking. Crew scattering. We whooped quiet, fists bumping, grins cracking frozen lips. Ruiz slapped my back. Latrine kids got luck, Sarge. Doc nodded. Or stones. Luck. Yeah. But as the Artie walked the hill, turning it to thunder, I felt a snag. The kid was holding, whispering updates like a pro, voice steadying with each crank. Half-track pulling back, infantry probing west. Not freezing, not fumbling, just doing. My plan, get rid of the burden, had backfired. Now he was an asset, wired in, buying us time. Christ, what a mess. Afternoon turned to slurry. The barrage lifted after 20 minutes, leaving the ridge a blackened scar visible even through the thinning fog. Jerry countered. Probes, shadows in the trees, testing our wire with pot shots. We answered. Malone picking him off at 200, Garand cracking precise. Ruiz hosing a flank with the bar, brass arcing into the snow. I directed from the hole, M1 barking when they closed. One got through, young pup, 15 maybe, Hitler youth with a worn 98K, eyes wild under his helmet. He charged screaming, bayonet fixed, and I dropped him at 10 yards, center mass, clean. He folded like wet paper, steam rising from the hole in his tunic. No time for pity. War's children died quick. Reilly's line stayed hot. More coming, Sarge. From the east. Platoon, maybe. Mortars setting up. We adjusted. Doc popping White Foss to mark, me calling shifts. The kids' reports sharpened our fire, turning blind shots to kills. By dusk, the probe broke, Jerry's hauling ass with their tails between. We counted 8 down, no wounded on our side. Hargrove came over personal, map updated. Wires paying off, preacher, kids a find. Yes, sir. I kept it even, but inside, the twist tightened. A find, great. Now I had to haul him, not bury him. Pulling Reilly off the hill was no picnic. Fog lifting meant exposure. So I took Malone and Ruiz, flankers, ghosts in the gloaming. We crept the wire trail, boots whispering, E-tools ready for booby. The spool led like a vein, buried hasty but holding. Crest was a moonscape, craters steaming, pines splintered. 1 mg nest, a twisted lump of tube and sack. Bodies. 4, twisted in death, faces slack in the snow. No graphic, just shapes. Still, war's art. We found him in a scrape off the reverse slope, knee-deep, camouflaged with branches, the phone cradled like a baby. Reilly looked up, ghost pale, lips cracked blue. Sarge. No salute, just exhaustion carved deep. His uniform was shredded at the knees from crawling, hands raw and bleeding, where thorns had bit. But the Grand lay clean beside him, clip full. Mount up, kid, I said, helping him out. He staggered, leaning heavy, but gathered his gear, phone, reel, all intact. Malone covered rear, Ruiz point. We ghosted down, no shots, just the crunch of boots and wind moaning low. Back at the holes, the squad greeted him quiet. Nods. A canteen passed. Doc checked him over. Frost snip on the ears, cuts on the palms, but nothing mortal. Sulfan sleep techs, he said, the nickname slipping easy now. Reilly managed a grin weak as dishwater. Did okay, Sarge, I grunted, tossing him a blanket from my roll. You held the hill. That's more than okay. But as he wrapped up, snoring hit within minutes, I stepped away, lighting another smoke in the dark. The squad bedded down, fire banked low, but sleep dodged me. That hill, his hill, had been a gamble I rigged to lose. Sent him out to fade, clear the deck for the real men. Instead, he'd wired victory, turned our blind side to steel. Miner's trick, he'd said. soft spots under rocks, like the latrine tank. Coincidence? Or something bred in those hollers? Knowing Earth, feeling give before break. Wind picked up, carrying distant rumble, panzers shifting or our boys countering. Bradley was out there, the infantry's friend, piecing the line without Patton's fireworks. But here, it was us, and this kid who'd crawled into hell and cranked back intel like a vet. Risk? I'd risked him, all right, and he'd paid it back in spades. Now what? Babysit a boot turning blooded? Or push harder, see if he cracked for real? Dawn broke colder, shells starting their daily hymn. Reilly stirred, taking watch without a word. Eyes on the wire, hands steady on the phone. The squad flowed around him, no more edges. Ruiz shared smokes. Malone showed him scope tricks. Even I caught myself nodding approval when he reported a scout clean. But the risk lingered, a shadow in my gut. One good run didn't make a soldier. The Bulge was a beast, and beasts ate the unwary. I'd sent him out to die easy. Now, with him wired in, the next push loomed. Hargrove talking assault on the nest's flank, us leading. If Reilly froze there, under fire, it'd cost more than a solo creep. Cost Malone, maybe. Or Ruiz. And that I couldn't bury with lies. By noon, orders firmed, assault at 1600. Flank the ridge, roll the remnants. Wire stays hot, Hargrove said. Yeah, kid's our edge. Reilly nodded, packing charges, TNT blocks from demo kit. His hands sure now, wrapping det cord like he'd done it in the mines. I watched, smoke forgotten. Preparation meets opportunity, he'd said. Maybe. But opportunity bit back. As we geared, extra mags, grenades, bayonets fixed, I clapped his shoulder. Stick close this time, Tex. No solo heroics. Yes, sir. Eyes met mine, still wide but harder. No shakes. We moved out as one, fog burned off, sun weak on the snow. The ridge waited, smoking faint. Jerry waited too, somewhere in the pines. Risk? Yeah, but now it was shared. And that twisted worse than the cold. The assault kicked off ragged but right. We hit the flank low, bellies to earth, Malone sniping leads, Reilly strung rearguard, phone trailing like a leash. Shells fell, ours and theirs, turning the slope to chaos. Whistles, booms, the zip of lead. A 98K cracked close, splintering rock. Ruiz answered with bar thunder. Up we pushed, hole to hole. Reilly froze once, mortar round, air bursting overhead, shrapnel pattering like hail. But he moved, crawled, fired, even clipped a Jerry scout at 50 yards, Garand ping echoing clean. Crest broke under us, nests empty, crews fled or folded. We took it, flags planted hasty. Hargrove radioed up. Ridge secure, good work. Later, in the captured scrape, deeper than ours and with Jerry blankets still warm, Reilly slumped, spent. Got him, Sarge. Yeah, I passed the canteen. You did. But as night fell, stars pricking the black, I lay wakeful. The risk I'd taken, sending him alone, had forged something. Not a hero, not yet, but a piece that fit. And in the Bulge's maw, fitting was survival. For him, for us. Still, the beast hungered. Tomorrow's push loomed bigger, and risks, they multiplied. We held that damned ridge through the night like it was the last scrap of high ground between Bastogne and Berlin. Hill 208 wasn't much. Just a hump of frozen dirt and splintered timber, but from up top, you could glass the whole eastern slope down to the Orth River Valley, where the fog pooled like spilled milk in the hollows. The air up there bit harder than down in the holes. Wind scouring your face raw, carrying the faint tang of burnt powder from the day's arty. We dragged up what we could, extra ammo crates from the wrecked nests, Jerry blankets that smelled like sauerkraut and sweat, even a couple of their Mauser 98Ks for parts. Malone was already stripping one for the bolt face, muttering about how Kraut steel ran smoother in the cold than our Grands, which jammed if you so much as breathed on 'em wrong. Ruiz had the bar propped on a sandbag rim, feeding it belts from a captured can, the links clinking soft like loose change in a pocket. Doc sorted cigarettes by the dim glow of a chemlight, his breath fogging the lens of his glasses. And me? I paced the crest, M1 slung easy, eyes sweeping the dark for shadows that didn't belong. Reilly was down with the wire detail, coiled the spare line neat as a pin, then hunkered in a fresh scrape he'd clawed out with that E-tool of his. Kid worked the dirt like it owed him money, finding the soft seams under the crust where a pick would have bounced off. "Miner's eye, Sarge," he'd said earlier, wiping black soil from his palms. "Pa always said the ground talks if you listen." I hadn't answered, just nodded, because what do you say to a boy who's gone from fumbling his rifle to turning Earth into an ally overnight? The squad had thawed toward him some, passing him a share of the ersatz coffee, bitter as regret, boiled from snowmelt over a foxhole stove. No more latrine kid. It was Tex now, said with a half grin that masked the wariness. They'd seen boots like him before, flash of promise, then a crack under fire. But for now he fit. Wired in, eyes sharp, an edge we needed, with the bulge swelling like a storm front. Hargrove's voice crackled over the radio around midnight, SCR 300 hissing static like an angry cat. "Eagle Nest, this is Hawk 6. Sit rep." I thumbed the mic, keeping it low. "Ridge secure, sir. Nests silenced. Wire hot. No movement east. Jerry's licking wounds." Pause, then his reply, clipped as ever. "Roger. Dawn push confirmed. Battalion wants the crossroads below. Cut their supply vein. You'll lead, preacher." Sherman's rolling up at 0600. Already prep at 0530. Hold till relieved. I signed off, gut tightening like a noose. Dawn push. Christ, in the Ardennes, dawn meant gray light and long shadows. Perfect for Jerry's tricks. The crossroads was a choke point, a frozen scar of packed snow and rutted ice, flanked by draws thick with pine and fern. We'd scouted it loose from the ridge. Malone's glass picking out bunkers half buried, wire glinting dull. Von Rundstedt's last gasp, they said. The old fox throwing his reserves into this weather like it was summer in the Caucasus. We'd heard the rumors over the BBC scraps Ruiz scavenged. Panzers massing, SS boys with their death's head rings, even weather holding like a favor from the devil. Bradley was out there, the GI's general, piecing the line with quiet steel. No patent fireworks. But quiet didn't mean safe. A push like this? It'd be blood on the snow before the coffee cooled. Sleep came in fits. Huddled in the scrape with poncho liner pulled tight, the cold seeping up through the rubber mat like fingers from the grave. Dreams were the usual rot. Sicily again, 1943, the roar of a .88 flak gun, turning my platoon to mist. Woke sweating despite the freeze, M1 in my lap like a talisman. The squad stirred pre-dawn, shadows moving in the gloom. Malone sighted his piece into the valley, breath steady. Ruiz chambered the bar with that heavy thunk, testing the feed. Doc passed Atterbury tabs, for the shakes you won't admit to. And we dry swallowed 'em, bitter as bile. Reilly was up early, cranking the phone to Hargrove with updates. Fog lifting slow, Sarge. Visibility 200. No heat signatures. Kid had borrowed Malone's binos, glassing methodical, calling ranges like he'd been born to it. 0530 hit with a rumble that shook the pines. The battery south of us, 105s barking in unison, shells whispering overhead like a flock of iron geese. Whoomp, whoomp, whoomp. Impacts blooming yellow in the valley, dirt fountaining high enough to speckle the ridge. Jerry answered quick. Screams faint on the wind, then counter battery. 105s dueling in the murk. We hunkered low, helmets ringing from near misses, the ground quivering like a struck drum. "Keep down!" I barked, but it was preaching to the choir. The prep walked the crossroads, chewing bunkers to splinters, and for a heartbeat, it felt like we had the devil by the short hairs. 0600, the Shermans growled up. 3 of them, easy 8 models with the wet storage racks, treads churning snow to slop. Lieutenant Ellis commanded the lead, popping his cupola to wave us down. "Mount up, preacher. We're rolling hot." His voice carried over the diesels, all boyish fire. We piled on. Me and Malone on the first, Ruiz and Doc on the second, Reilly bringing up with the third, his Garand strapped tight. The tanks lurched forward, glacis plates shrugging off the odd pot shot. 50 cals chattering suppressive. We dismounted at the base, boots hitting frozen turf, and advanced in bounds, squad wedge, me center, flanks covered. The valley opened before us, smoke wreathing the craters, air thick with the reek of high explosive and pine sap. First line of bunkers loomed, low mounds of log and earth, doors yawning black. Looked abandoned, wire tangled and smoking. Easy, I hissed, signaling halt. Malone crept forward, bayonet fixed, peeking the nearest. Empty, sack slit, MG barrel warped from a direct hit. Clear, he called, and we flowed in, occupying like it was drill. Reilly took the far end, kicking over a crate that spilled kraut rations, hardtack, and tinned meat. Labels faded. Sarge, looks like they bugged out in a hurry. His voice was steady, no hitch, eyes scanning the draw beyond. I nodded, waving Ruiz to string wire across the front. The Shermans hulked behind, turrets traversing slow, 76mm guns probing the mist. Artie lifted, and the world went quiet. Too quiet, the kind that sets your teeth on edge. We pushed the second line, another 100 yards, contouring the slope. Bunkers here too, but lighter damage, doors intact. Malone glassed ahead. More wire, Sarge, and shapes. Foot mobiles, pulling back. I squeezed off a test shot, crack of the grand, on-block clip pinging empty, into the haze, no return. Flank it, I ordered. Squad split, Ruiz left with Doc, Malone right, me and Reilly center. The ground dipped into a gully, snow thigh-deep, sucking at your legs like it wanted to keep you. Cold clawed through my woolens, fingers numb on the stock despite the gloves. Every step crunched, too loud, echoey in the bowl. Then it happened. From the right draw, a nest woke up. Not one, but two MG-42s. The Hitler buzzsaw, barking that unholy terror of 7.92 rounds. Started low, stitching snow to steam, then climbed, ripping into the open. Malone's side took it first. Screams cut short, the flat slap of lead on meat. Down! I roared, diving behind a stump, bark exploding beside my helmet. The air filled with the zip, zip, zip of tracers, green fire lacing the white. Ruiz's bar answered. Thud, 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 the .30 caliber hosing back. But it was pea shooters against chain lightning. Doc yelled something, garbled, frantic, then silence from left. Reilly hit the deck beside me. Face in the snow, Guerin clutched like a lifeline. Sarge, he started, but I clamped his shoulder. Belay that. Crawl left, find cover. He nodded, bellied forward, disappearing into the drift. The MGs walked the gully, chewing earth, splintering wood. One Sherman, Ellis's lead, lurched forward to support, 75mm booming flat, shell shrieking into the nest. Direct hit? No. Smoke from the flank, but the guns didn't falter. Then, a whoosh, like a sigh from hell. Panzerfaust from the tree line. The rocket nailed the turret, orange bloom erupting. The tank slewing wild before grinding to a halt, flames licking the hatches. Crew bailed, two shadows tumbling, cut down before they cleared 10 feet. The other Shermans reversed, diesels snarling, but too late. One caught a second Faust, engine compartment blooming black, belching oily smoke. Pull back, I bellowed, but back was a dream. The MGs pinned us, crossfire from the draws turning the gully to a kill sack. Flanks gone, Malone down, I saw his boot twitch once, then still. Ruiz silent, Doc's medic pouch spilled red in the snow. Panic clawed my throat, hot and coppery. We'd walked into it. Classic Jerry trap, feint the bunkers, lure the push, then spring the jaws. Rommel would have tipped his cap. This was Africa all over. Desert fox and snow camouflage. The air hummed with ricochets, bullets smacking stumps, whining off rocks. I fired blind, grand bucking, reports lost in the roar, emptied a clip into the haze. Ping of the en-bloc sharp in my ear. Grenades came next. Steel hand granites, potato mashers, arcs tumbling lazy from the heights. First one landed short, snow erupting in a geyser that dusted us white. Second, too close. Blast wave slamming my chest, shrapnel whispering past like angry wasps. I felt the sting in my calf, hot, wet, but no time to check. Rolled behind the stump, dirt cold against my cheek, heart hammering like a trip hammer. The squad, what was left, was scattered. Reilly scraped 20 yards left, empty. A shape that might have been Ruiz face down in the drift. No calls, no movement. Just the saw of the MGs, relentless, chewing the world to pulp. I keyed the radio. SCR 536 at my belt, antenna snapped from the fall. Hawk 6, this is Preacher. Ambush, East Gully. Flanks collapsed. Tanks hit. Need extract. Over. Static hissed back. Then a burst. Receiver sparked. Went dead. Shrapnel? Or a stray round? Didn't matter. We were blind now, cut off clean. Battalion might as well be on the moon. The Shermans were burning beacons, drawing fire. Koch's 50s still chattering defiant, but fading. Jerry infantry closed, gray helmets bobbing in the smoke, MP40s popping bursts. Shapes, not men. War turned them to targets, but up close you saw the eyes. Cold, professional, or scared kid under the Feldgrau. Fear hit then, real and gnawing, the kind that hollows your gut. Not for me. I'd danced this jig since Kazarine, 1943, when Rommel's ghosts nearly bagged the whole 2 Corps. But for the boys, Malone with his dead-eye squint and stories of Philly cheesesteaks, Ruiz humming those Bronx ballads while he humped the bar like a brother. Doc, steady hands that had pulled more guts back in than Frankenstein. And Reilly, Christ, the kid, wired in from the ridge, but the line? Snagged in the wire we strung, or severed in the crossfire. No crank, no whisper. Gone, probably, a shape in the snow like the others. I didn't dwell, couldn't. Dwelling got you killed, but it twisted, sharp as the shrapnel in my leg, knowing I'd sent him into the teeth. Luck or no, miner's eye or no, green stayed green. Another grenade, thump in the drift 5 yards out. I curled tight, blast roar deafening, pressure wave slamming my ribs. Dirt rained, pattering my helmet like gravel on tin. When it cleared, I risked a peek. Krauts advancing 20 yards and closing, lobbing more sticks. One silhouette raised an arm. Schmeisser leveled. I fired from the hip. Garand barking twice, the figure jerking, folding slow. Clip pinged empty. I slapped home another, bolt slamming home with that satisfying clack. But ammo? 8 rounds left in this one. 2 clips spare. Bar silent. Ruiz out or empty. No medevac, no resupply. Just us, bleeding out in a Belgian freezer. Up and at 'em, I yelled. More habit than hope, surging from cover. Leg buckled, wound deeper than I thought, warm trickle down my boot. But adrenaline's a hell of a drug. Fired on the move, dropping another shadow at 15 yards. The MGs shifted. One traversing left, hosing the gully rim where the tank smoldered. The other walked toward me, tracers lacing the snow like fiery stitches. I dove, rolled, came up firing. Missed, but close. The Kraut gunner ducking. Squad. Nothing. Emptied my clip. The Grand's recoil a familiar punch against my shoulder. That 8th round slam like a door kick. Ping. Empty again. Hands shook loading the last, fingers numb. Rounds slipping once before seating. They closed to 10 yards. 5 now. Rifles raised. Faces gaunt under helmets. Young ones mostly. Conscripts. Eyes hollow with the 1,000-yard stare we'd all wear soon. One barked something, order, curse, and leveled a 98K. Time stretched, the world narrowing to that bore, black as sin. I raised my empty Grand like a club, bayonet glinting, ready for the lunge. War's endgame. Steel on steel, grunt and stab, till one stopped breathing. But the gunner, the MG crew, faltered. A burst from behind them. Our way? No. Deeper. From the tree line. Not ours. Jerry on Jerry? Confusion rippled their line, heads turning, shouts and guttural bursts. The advancing squad hesitated, MP40s swinging wild. Opportunity? Thin as fog, but I grabbed it. Now! I roared to ghosts, charging the gap. Bayonet caught cloth, resistance giving way with a grunt. Warm spray on my hands, but I pushed past, no look back. Snagged a fallen 98K, bolt slick with oil, chambered around. Fired from the hip. Crack. Another down. The MGs stuttered, one silent, the other spraying shadows. I made the draw's lip, shallow cover of root and rock, sliding in on belly, snow shocking cold. Leg throbbed, a firebrand, but I ignored it, sighting the nearer nest. 50 yards, obscured by smoke, but the gun's flash betrayed it. Squeezed, missed. Again, hit, the loader jerking back. The gun swung my way, barrel glowing cherry from the heat. Tracers reached zip, zip, chipping stone, whining past my ear close enough to sing. I fired deliberate, crack, crack. Second round low, but the gunner slumped, feed halting. The other MG redoubled, roaring defiance, stitching the lip to dust. Chips flew, stinging my neck. No more rounds. Bolt locked open, mocking. Grenades again, two tumbling, fuses hissing. I burrowed deep, arms overhead, blasts erupting in stereo, earth heaving, roar swallowing thought. When it faded, ears ringing like cathedral bells, I peeked. The squad reformed, cautious now, probing with fire. 5 left, maybe. Us? Me, bleeding and spent, with echoes for company. Radio gone, wire severed, Hargrove blind. Artie? We'd called it wrong. Walked into the sack without flankers. My fault. Pushed too eager on the prep's tail, trusted the smoke. Patton would have chewed me new, roaring about guts and glory. But Bradley? He'd just shake his head, tally the cost. Bodies in the snow. Malone's scope glinting. Ruiz's bar muzzle down. Doc's kit spilled. Reilly's grand? Lost in the drift or clutched in frozen fingers. Kid had potential. Miner's grit, that stubborn spark. But potential don't stop bullets. Sent him with the third tank. Probably caught the Faust blast or the crossfire. Clean end, maybe. Better than rotting in a POW camp, or worse. Dark thoughts crowded as the cold deepened. Sun climbing weak behind clouds, turning the valley to slate. Thirst clawed my throat, canteen frozen solid. Leg wound? Packed with snow, staunched for now. But infection loomed, the dull ache promising fever. Jerry probed. Scouts in the open, binos flashing. I played Ghost, still breathing shallow. M1 empty, beside the scavenged 98K. 5 rounds left in it by feel, enough for 5 prayers. Hours dragged, mid-morning by the light. But time lied in the fog. Shells fell sporadic. Our guns blind-firing grids. Jerry's 88s countering, screams of the dying our soundtrack. One Sherman still burned, pyre for the crew. The others silent hulks, treads twisted. I shifted, pain lancing white-hot, and knocked loose snow, a small avalanche whispering down. Enough? A scout's head snapped my way. Helmet tilting. Freeze. He glassed, deliberate, then waved. More coming. Panic surged, hot and blind. Breakout? Suicide, open ground, MGs raking, hold? Till dark, maybe slip the noose. But alone? The squad's ghosts pressed. Malone's squint, Ruiz's hum, Doc's steady. Reilly's drawl. Ground talks if you listen. Yeah, kid. And it was screaming trap. They advanced again, 10 yards at a time. Fire teams bounding, grenades prepping. One tossed short, thump, near miss, shrapnel tugging my sleeve. I fired the 98K, crack, sharp as a whip. Dropped the thrower, but spent the clip. Bolt locked. Empty. Bayonet time. Rose slow, steel fixed, hard a drum. Come on, you bastards. Let's dance. But the lead man froze, eyes widening, pointing past me. Shouts, urgent, alarmed. From the rear, their rear. A pop, rifle, single, clean. Then chaos, their flank erupting, shadows scattering. Not ours? What the hell, no time. I lunged. Bayonet found mark, twist, and withdraw. The man gurgling soft. Pushed through, grabbing his MP40, banana mag heavy 9mm for rounds. Fired bursts, brap, brap. Into the milling group, shapes falling. The MGs swung wild, hosing their own lines now. Panic turning the trap inside out. I ran, limping, fire in my leg, toward the burning Sherman, cover in the wreck. Bullets chased but erratic. Jerry's fire divided, slid behind the turret, metal scalding through gloves, acrid smoke choking. From here, the valley view, their line fracturing, a lone figure, no. Smoke and shadow. Imagination or... Nah, Reilly's ghost, maybe. Kid's luck rubbing off. The fight turned inward, Krauts shooting at phantoms, our chance. Thin but breathing. I hunkered, MP40 hot in hands, counting breaths. Squad gone, command blind, but alive. For now, afternoon wore on, gray bleeding to dusk. Probes slacked. Jerry consolidating or pulling back. Wounds throbbed, thirst a knife. Thought of home, Ohio farm, Ma's cornbread, the quiet after harvest. Lies we told. This for that. But the boys. Paid full. Malone's laugh, Ruiz's tunes, Doc's hands, Reilly's spark. Dark fell slow. Stars pricking cold. Move, risk the dark. Hold, pray resupply. Decision hung heavy as the smoke. Then a crunch, boot on snow. Close. Rifle, no. E-tool, scrape. Heart seized. Jerry finisher? Preacher? Whisper, twang. Impossible. But no. Hallucination. Trap's joke. The scrape again. Shadow loomed. Helmet outline. Garand silhouette. Tex? Horse disbelieving. Sarge. Reilly, alive, scratched to hell, eyes wild but steady. Wires down, but I saw everything. Christ, the kid, not ghost. But questions later. Movement in the dark, Jerry stirring. Cover, I hissed. We hold. He slid in, shoulder to shoulder. MP40 passed. Together, Sarge. Together. Yeah. The night deepened. Cold, absolute. Trap sprung, but jaws pried, for now. Night clamped down on that godforsaken gully like a vice. The kind that squeezed the last warmth from your bones and left you shivering in the dark with nothing but your thoughts and the ghosts of the day. The Ardennes in December 1944 wasn't just cold. It was a living thing. A predator that stalked you slow, turning your fingers to clubs and your eyelids to lead. I dragged what I could of the Sherman wreck for cover. The turret's skirt, bent and blackened from the Faust hit, propped against a root ball to make a lean-to that kept the wind off our backs, but did jack for the chill seeping up from the snow. My leg was a throbbing bastard now, the shrapnel bite in my calf packed with sulfa from Doc's spilled kit, white powder caked in the gash like dirty flour, but it wept steady, warm and sticky down into my sock. Pain was an old friend. The kind you nodded to but never invited in. Kept you sharp, reminded you breath was borrowed. Reilly huddled beside me, close enough I could hear his teeth chatter under that mountain drawl he tried to swallow. Kid looked like hell thawed and refrozen. Face smeared black with camo grease and soot. Uniform torn at the elbows from whatever crawl he'd made to find me. His Garand lay across his knees, bolt back for a quick check. The end-block clip glinting dull in the starlight. He'd scavenged it from the drift, he said, after the Faust cooked the 3rd Sherman. Wire snapped clean, Sarge, he'd whispered when he slid in, voice rough as gravel. But I saw the trap set, scouts pulling back, letting us push, waited till dark to circle. Circled. Christ, the boy had ghosted a full click through Jerry lines, alone, with MGs still hot. Miner's blood, maybe, knowing shadows, feeling the give in the ground. But his eyes, when they met mine? Haunted. The 1,000-yard stare, creeping in already. 19, and he'd seen his first real meat grinder. Malone's boot, twitching final. Ruiz face down, silent. Doc's kit red. The squad, my squad, gone to ghosts before the sunset. We didn't talk much after that first exchange. Words were cheap in a spot like this, better saved for orders or curses. Instead, we shared the silence, passing the MP40 I'd snagged like it was a sacrament. Banana mag half full, 9mm rounds greasy from the previous owner's gloves. Reilly took first watch, perched on the wreck's edge, binos from Malone's pouch sweeping the dark. I catnapped in fits, M1 across my chest, finger indexed outside the guard, like always. Dreams, fragments. Ohio summers, hay bales sweet in the sun, then Sicily, 1943, the wine of Stukas turning the sky to fire. Woke once to his hand on my shoulder. Gentle, like he was afraid I'd shatter. Quiet, Sarge. Just wind, but it wasn't wind. Low murmurs from the tree line, German gutturals floating on the breeze. Probing. Always probing. Von Rundstedt's boys, the old Prussian throwing his last cards, reserves scraped from the fatherland, kids and granddads with rifles too big for their hands. We'd heard the BBC scraps earlier, Ruiz's little radio crackling before the Faust. The line holding at Bastogne, McAuliffe telling Jerry to go pound sand with nuts. But holding meant dying slow, And we were the bleed. Dawn was a joke. Gray smear bleeding into the white, fog coiling thick from the river like cigarette smoke from a foxhole. No resupply, no extract. Hargrove blind without the wire. Battalion probably writing us off as KIA. The Sherman smoldered faint, oily plumes twisting up to mark our grave. We'd scavenged what we could in the dark. Ruiz's bar, 2 belts left. Doc's morphine syrettes, 3 tubes. A couple frags from the tanker's pouches. Reilly'd found a kraut stick grenade, too. The potato masher handle wrapped tight in his fist. For close work, he'd muttered, like he'd planned it. Kid was adapting, green peeling away layer by layer, revealing the coal-hard core underneath. But adapting didn't fill bellies or staunch wounds. Thirst hit first. Canteens cracked from the freeze, snow too fouled with cordite to melt clean. Hunger? A dull roar in the gut. Sea rats, a memory. By mid-morning, they came. Not a probe, a push. Engines growled distant at first. Diesel snarling through the pines, then closer. Half tracks, Maybach motors belching blue exhaust that cut the fog like a knife. We glassed them from the wreck. Tust K-Fazid, 251s, canvas flaps tied back, gray uniforms crammed in like sardines. Infantry dismounting, 30 maybe. Rifles slung, MP40s for the Sturm Squad. Behind, a lumbering shape. Hanamag, the Siddiq K-Faz, 250, lighter but mean. Its 20mm flak gun mounted rear like a stinger. No panzers yet, but enough to roll a pinned squad. They debarked methodical. Officers barking in that clipped Deutsch, pointing our way with our field glasses. The Rex gave us away, pyres for the Ravens. They're fixing on the tanks, Reilly whispered, voice steady despite the shake in his binos. Coming straight. I nodded, chambering the bar. Thunk of the 30-round home. Bipod folded for hipfire. Let him close to 100, then we sting. Sting. That's what it was now. Hornets in a bottle. Buy time till dark or death. The MGs from yesterday's nests chattered warm-up bursts, testing the range, rounds zipping overhead like hornets themselves. We hunkered lower, the Rex steel pinging from ricochets, sparks dancing blue. My legs screamed with every shift, but I ignored it. Focus on the front sight, the press of the trigger. Reilly beside me, Garand sighted deliberate, that miner's patience settling in his shoulders. No freeze this time. Good. They advanced in fire teams, bounds of 10 yards. One covering while the next crawled. Snow churned to slop under their boots. Feldgrau blending with the white like ghosts in linen. An officer led Leutnant, bars on his collar, pistol drawn, waving them forward with that Prussian snap. The half-tracks idled rear. Koch's MGs traversing lazy, the Hanamag's 20mm swiveling our way. Arty spotters trailed, binoculars up, calling grids to batteries we couldn't see. If those shells landed true, we'd be missed. Wait, I breathed, heart steady as the bars wait. 50 yards, 40. The lead team rose to rush. Bayonets fixed on Car 98Ks, MP40s chattering bursts that stitched the snow short. Now. I squeezed. Bar roaring full auto. The bipodless recoil slamming my shoulder like a mule kick. Rounds hosed left to right. 30 caliber tearing divots. 2 Jerrys folding mid-stride, helmets flying. Reilly's Garand cracked beside. Ping of the clip eject. Boom, boom, precise. Dropping the lieutenant clean through the throat. No spray, just down. Twitching once. The team faltered, diving for cover. Return fire snapping back. 98Ks barking sharp. MP40s yammering on semi. Bullets smacked the wreck, whining off the turret ring. One grazing my helmet brim with a tang that rang my teeth. Reloading, Reilly called, slapping home a fresh on-block bolt slick. I switched to bursts. Thud, thud, thud. Conserving the belt. Tracers arcing gold into the haze. Hit another, arm flopping unnatural. But they pressed, numbers telling. The half-track's MG joined. Koch's 7.92 ripping sustained, turning the air to lead hail. The wreck shuddered, plates buckling inward, shrapnel from inside pinging like coins in a can. Shift left, I yelled, dragging us behind the engine block, scorched but thicker. Reilly fired from the hip, Garand bucking, but a round caught his sleeve, tearing cloth with a rip. He didn't flinch, just cycled, fired, the 8th round slam echoing his grit. Grenades flew, our frags first, arcs tumbling into the press. Mine hit short, snow erupting in a white plume that blinded a team. Reilly's potato masher perfect. Thump blast, scattering 3, screams high and animal. But Jerry answered, steel hand granites looping back, fuses hissing like vipers. One landed close, too close. Blast waves slamming us flat, ears popping, dirt sifting down my collar. I felt the sting in my arm, shallow but hot, and tasted blood where I'd bit my tongue. Reilly coughed, waving smoke, but up quick, firing. The push stalled, bodies littering the snow, 6 down maybe. But the half-tracks revved, advancing slow, MGs hosing cover. Then the 20mm spoke. From the Hanamag shells shrieking flat, impacting the wreck with sledgehammer thuds. Armor piercing, the rounds punched through side armor, ricocheting wild inside, sparks, howls of metal. One clipped the bar stock, splintering wood. I dropped it cursing, snagging the MP40 instead. Fall back! But back was the gully wall, steep, iced, no cover. We scrambled crabwise, snow sucking at knees, fire nipping heels. A 98K round burned past Reilly's ear, close enough to singe hair. He spun, dropped the shooter with a grand snap. Kid was blooded now, no question. We made a boulder cluster. Knee-high granite, pocked from previous fire, hunkering as the world erupted. Half-tracks closed to 80 yards. Infantry bounding behind. The Hanamag circling flank. Artie called. Whistles building, then crash. 105s, not ours, bracketing the rocks. Dirt fountain, blast waves staggering us, one shell air bursting overhead to shower shrapnel like iron rain. I felt it tug my pack, canvas shredding, but no bite. Reilly wasn't so lucky. A fragment scored his cheek, blood welling bright against the grime. I'm good, he grunted, pressing a rag torn from his shirt to stanch it. Liar. But eyes locked mine, defiant. That West Virginia coal fire burning steady. The barrage lifted, earth still quivering, and they charged, full assault, whistles blowing, boots pounding. 20 left, yelling gutturals that blended with the wind. MGs from the vehicles stitched ahead, suppressing. We fired till empty. MP40 brapping bursts that dropped 2. Reilly's grand, pinging clips like clockwork. Each shot a placed bet. But ammo dwindled. Last mag for the sub. 2 clips for him. The Hanamag's 20mm traversed. Muzzle flash strobing the fog. Shell incoming. Screech, impact 20 yards left. Boulder shattering to shrapnel that whined past like banshees. Pinned. Done. I keyed the dead radio out of habit. Static mocking, while Jerry closed to 30 yards, faces resolving, young, old, all grim. Officer replacement. Feldwebel, stripes on sleeve, waving saber charge, pistol popping wild. Endgame. Tex, I said, voice low over the din, slapping his shoulder. When they hit, you bolt rear. Find the river, link up. I'll hold. Lies both ways. But a Sarge's job. Last out or first in the bag. He shook his head, chambering his last round. Together, Sarge. Like you said. Stubborn kid. Miner's son. Ground gave, but he wouldn't. They came on. Fire slack for the rush. Bayonets low. MP40s slung for the melee. 20 yards, 10. The world narrowed. Front sights, breaths fogging. The crunch of snow under Feldgrau. My bayonet fixed. Cold steel extension, ready for the thrust. Reilly beside, Garen clubbed. Come on, you sons! Then it started. From their rear, the tree line behind the half-tracks, a single ping. Sharp, unmistakable. M1 Garand, en bloc ejecting empty. High and clean, like a bell in hell. The trailing officer, another lieutenant, binoculars dangling, jerked, clutched his neck, folded slow into the snow. No spray, just down steam rising from the hole. The charge faltered, heads whipping, shouts rising. Sniper! Im Rücken! Jerry 4, in the rear. Panic rippled, the Feldwebel bellowing orders, pistol waving wild. Before they could pivot, another sound. Frag, spoon, ping, then whoosh arc. Our pineapple? No, landed perfect in the nearer MG nest on the half-track. Blast erupting orange-black, flames licking canvas. The gun went silent. Crew tumbling out screaming, clothes afire. Snow steamed where they rolled, the vehicle slewing wild, diesel feeding the pyre. Riley's eyes widened beside me, mine too. What the? But no time. The Hanamag's crew reacted. 20mm swiveling rear, shells shrieking into the trees, impacts splintered pine, bark exploding in chunks. But the gunner jerked sudden, head snap, slump over the sights. Another grand ping, faint but sure. From deeper in the woodline, methodical, crack, pause, crack. Like a clock tolling. Jerry infantry scattered, firing blind into the fog. MP40 bursts, stitching shadows. 98 Ks, cracking wild. Find him, Rookin'. Rukzug. Retreat calls now. The push crumbling to chaos. A third shot, low, precise, caught the half-track driver mid-bail. Engine blooming fuel fire that woofed up 10 feet, roasting the wounded. The second half-track revved reverse. Treads spinning snow, but too slow. Another frag arc. Thump blast under the tracks. Axle shearing with a metallic scream. It ground to a halt, turret jammed sideways, crew bailing into the kill zone. Their own MGs, the surviving nest, raked back but erratic, chewing their flank. Friendly fire screams mixed with the curses. I stared, heart thumping odd. A ghost. Had to be. One man, impossible odds, picking him like apples. Not battalion, too quiet, too placed. Air support? No, stars clear, no P-47 Thunder. Partisan? Belgians, maybe. Resistance slipping knives in the dark. But that ping... American iron. Garand's signature, the clip's telltale eject. One of ours? Cut off like us? Or... Nah, couldn't be. We were it. The last two eagles in this sack. Cover! I hissed to Reilly, dragging him deeper behind the boulders as stray rounds whined. But the pressure lifted. Jerry's advance shattered, squads peeling back to the vehicles, hauling wounded, the Feldwebel screaming orders till a branch cracked behind him, Garand again, and he dropped, saber clattering. The Hanamag tried to extract, 20mm hosing the tree line, but the ghost answered, single shot to the tires? No. Ammo crate on the rear deck exposed. Bullets struck spark and boom. Secondary, the whole back end erupting in chain fire, shells cooking off like fireworks. The half-tracks now wrecks. Burned dual pyres, lighting the fog orange, shadows dancing grotesque. Artie stopped cold, no whistles, no crashes. Their spotters pulled back, Beano's forgotten, scrambling with the rest. The woodline erupted full, Jerry pouring fire into nothing, muzzle flashes strobing the pines like a mad light show. Branches snapped, screams echoed, one half-track's coax chattering till it jammed, belt cooking off in loops. Chaos pure, organized assault turned rout. The trap sprung on the trapper. Reilly gripped my arm, voice a whisper over the din. Sarge, that's buying us breath. Breath. Yeah, first real one since the MGs woke. Hope, thin, but flickering, like a match in the wind. I used it, same as always. Wounded first, but wounded, just us. I nodded to his cheek, the blood crusting. Doc's kit, sulfa that. He pressed harder, shaking his head. Later. We move now? Move. Yeah. The route left a window. Jerry eyes rear, backs to us. I scanned. Gully wall climbable with grit, river beyond, maybe linked to the line. Or hold, let the ghost bleed 'em dry. But holding was death slow. Up the slope, quiet. Use the smoke. We rose slow, backs to the rocks, M1 and MP40 covering. The fires crackled, heat washing our faces, unnatural warm in the freeze. Smoke coiled thick, acrid with burning diesel and cordite, masking our creep. First pull-up, my leg betrayed, buckling sharp, pain lancing white. Bit down a grunt, hauled with arms, snow cascading soft. Reilly covered. Garand sighted into the mess, no shot needed. The Jerry rear boiled. Squads reforming hasty. Officers yelling into field phones. Wire to command, but static probably, like ours. Another ping, Garand, from the deep wood, dropping a radio man mid-crank. The phone clattered, line severed. Methodical. Patient. Like a hunter in the hollers, Riley'd say, waiting for the soft spot. We gained the rim, flat ground, pines thick for cover. Bellies low, we crawled, needles muffling boots, the din fading behind. A glance back, the assault a shambles, bodies strewn, vehicles aflame, the Hanamegs 20 minutes silent. Crew ghosts in the glow, the surviving infantry pulled east, toward the river road, leaving the nests unmanned. Our nests now if we circled. But no, link up first. Battalion had to know. Halfway to the tree line, a voice. Ruiz? No. Malone's ghost? Whisper. What the hell is that, Sarge? But it was Reilly, echoing my thoughts. Binos down. I shook my head, breath fogging. Damned if I know, Tex. Angel, maybe. Or Ike's secret weapon. Laughter bubbled, dry, cracked, but real. First since dawn. Hope, yeah. The kid felt it too, shoulders easing a hair. We ghosted into the pines, shadows among shadows, the cold forgotten in the rush. Sounds carried. Jerry shouts fading, engines revving retreat. Single shots still told. Crack, pause, crack, each a nail in their coffin. One more frag whoosh, distant blast, rattling branches. A truck? Ammo hauler, caught in the open. Secondary bloom lighting the ridge, momentary. Screams, then silence. Deeper in, we paused. Catch breath, check wounds. My calf wept steady, but I could walk. Arm grazed shallow, no sulfa needed. Riley's cheek crusted, but eyes clear. That ghost saved our bacon, Sarge. Yeah, bacon. Hot chow dream. I clapped his shoulder, firm, the nod unspoken. Saved yours too, kid, that creep back. Miner's magic. He grinned faint, wiping blood. Ground talks. Heard the half-tracks shift. Soft snow under treads. Waited for the angle. Angle, yeah. But the ghost? Separate. Ours, maybe. Straggler from another platoon. Cut off like us. Or Belgian Mackie with a stolen Garand. Didn't matter. Used it, moved on it. That's war. Grab the brake, don't question. Night deepened as we pushed. Stars wheeling cold overhead. Moon a sliver mocking. Distant rumble. Our Artie? Blind but walking grids. Jerry counter, 88s dueling. But here quiet, woods holding breath. Reilly took point. E-tool out for probes. That miner's ear to the earth. No trips, no snares. Kid moved like he'd been born in these pines. Not West Virginia seams. By midnight, we hit a trail. Deer path, rutted faint. River close, he whispered. Smell it. Damp? Yeah, earth twisting like a snake. Link there, maybe patrols. But ghosts lingered. The squads, Malone's squint sighting eternal. Ruiz's hum silenced. Doc's hands still. Buried 'em hasty at dusk, shallow, marked with dog tags on branches. Lies to the families, heroes all. But the real ghost, the one picking Jerry clean, that one breathed life. We crested a rise, valley view. Fires dotting the dark like fallen stars. The gully pyres still burned, smoke pillars to heaven. No movement. Jerry pulled full, the push broken. Battalion reclaimed tomorrow, Sherman's hauled for scrap. Us? Ghost 2, slipping the noose. Sarge, Reilly said, voice low. That shooting stopped. Yeah, silence now, profound. The woodline dark, no pings. Ghost faded, job done. Or moved on. I nodded, reloading the MP40. Last rounds chambered. Rest here. Dawn push. He settled, grand guard, but sleep dodged us both. Thoughts churn, the bulge grinding. Patton south with his tanks. Blood and guts promising relief. Bradley holding the center. Soldiers general, counting every round. But here, us against the night. And that ghost, unknown ally, sewing panic like thread in cloth. Wind moaned through the pines, carrying faint. A final crack, distant, echoing. Or imagination. Hope, though. First in hours. Days. We pushed on at false dawn. Fog lifting, world gray again. Trail led riverward, no contacts. Reilly scouted loose, vanishing 10 minutes, back with thumbs up. Clear. Ford ahead. Ford. Shallow ripple. Ice-fringed. We waited, cold shocking to the groin, rifles high. Other side, open ground, but friend? Foe? Shots, then. Not grand. Ours. 105s walking east, toward the nests. Battalion counter. Smelling blood. We broke cover, whistles low. Eagle calls faint. Response, challenge, then cheers. Ragged. Rangers? No. 101st, another platoon, cut off like us. They found us staggering out, faces gaunt, but grins, splitting beards. Preacher! Christ, thought you were Kraut Chow. There's Sarge, O'Brien, red-haired Mick. Clapped backs, passing canteen. Water clean. Medics swarmed. Doc replacement. Hands steady as our lost, probing wounds. Morphine tube in my leg. Sweet haze dulling the fire. Reilly got stitches for the cheek, sulfa for the graze, but waved it off. Walking wound, Doc. Debrief hasty. O'Brien's radio to Hargrove. Eagle Nest survivors inbound. Trap sprung, but ghost in the woods. Cleaned Jerry's clock. Static. Then LT's voice, tinny. Ghost? Details. None, just the pings, the blasts, the route. Mackey, they guessed. Or sniper team. Didn't matter. Line held, push, resumed. By noon, we linked battalion. Trucks rumbling up, hot chow. Stew steaming, bread hard but heaven. Reilly sat cross-legged, spooning slow, eyes distant. Squad? O'Brien asked, voice low. I shook head. Gone. All but us. Pause, nods. War's math. Afternoon brought brass. Captain, map in hand. Your wire reports saved the ridge, preacher. And the route? Intel says Jerry platoon evaporated. Vehicles total. No prisoners. We shrugged. Ghost's work. But Reilly? Quiet. That spark banked. Evening camp. Foxholes fresh. Fire banked low. Squad reformed. New faces. Green as Reilly once. He fit now, showing 'em E-tool tricks. Dig where it gives, boys. Ground talks. They listened. The tech's nickname sticking. Night fell. Stars sharp. I pulled Reilly aside, away from the glow, smokes shared. That ghost, Tex, see anything up close? Testing. Kid met eyes, steady. Shadows, Sarge, just shadows. Lie, maybe. But the ping, Garand, his Garand? Nah, impossible. He'd been with me. Or windside, carrying echo, distant crack. Imagination. Hope lingered, though. Ghost or no, we breathed. And in the bulge, breath was victory. Dawn on the second day after the trap hit like a hangover. You couldn't shake. Gray light filtering through the pines like dirty gauze, turning the snow to slush that sucked at your boots and turned every step into a reminder that the world wanted you. Stuck. We'd linked up with O'Brien's platoon late the night before. Ghosts ourselves stumbling into their perimeter like strays off the line. The 101st's lines were holding, ragged but stubborn. Bastogne a thorn in Jerry's side that they couldn't pull without bleeding rivers. McAuliffe's nuts had become legend around the foxhole stoves, whispered like a prayer when the shells started falling. But legends didn't keep the cold out or the panzers from probing. O'Brien's boys, a mix of old hands and fresh meat from the depot, had shared their scrapes, half rations of stew from 24 hours back, coffee that tasted like axle grease boiled in socks, and a medic who patched my leg with field sutures that pulled tight as piano wire. The wound was clean enough. No infection yet, just a dull fire that made me limp like an old dog. But the morphine haze lingered, fuzzing the edges of my thoughts. Reilly got the once-over, too. Cheek stitched neat, graze on the arm bandaged under his sleeve. Kid waved it off like it was a paper cut, but I saw the wince when he shouldered his grand. 19, and he'd danced with death twice in as many days. That mountain drawl of his stayed steady, but his eyes? Deeper now, like shafts sunk too far into the coal. We holed up in a fresh assembly point, a copse of firs off the main trail to the river, where the ground dipped enough to break the wind, but not so deep you'd drown in your own runoff. O'Brien's Sarge, a burly Irishman named Flanagan, with a brogue thick as peat. bumped my shoulder when we dropped gear. Heard about your ghost, preacher? Mackies, they say. Or one of Patton's boys slipped the net. Patton. Yeah, old Blood and Guts was churning south, Third Army grinding through the snow like a chainsaw through butter, promising to pinch the Bulge shut by New Year's. We'd caught snippets on the platoon radio before the batteries died. Ike coordinating from chef, moving corps like chess pieces, while Bradley held the center with that quiet steel that made you believe the line wouldn't break. But belief was thin gruel when you were down to 2 clips and a prayer. The ghost? We'd spun the yarn loose in debrief. Single shots, frags in the right spots, Jerry scattering like roaches under a boot. No names, no faces. Just enough to buy us cred without questions. Reilly kept quiet through it all, cleaning his M1 with that methodical tick of the bolt, like the whole route was yesterday's rain. Morning dragged into a sit-rep huddle, Flanagan sketching positions on a frozen notepad, grease pencil scratching faint. Battalion wanted the crossroads retaken full. Our old trap turned back on Jerry, with Sherman's rolling up from the rear to punch through. You two lead the point, he said, jabbing at the map, where the gully snaked east. Ghost cleared the nests, but they'll be back. Reserves from the SS Panzer Grenadiers. Mark my words. Rommel's playbook. Feint, bleed, counter. Rommel, the desert fox, even Deddy haunted us. His shadow in every ambush, every pullback that left you chasing air. I nodded, folding the scrap into my breast pocket. Lead point, with a gimpy leg and a kid who'd barely bloodied? But orders were orders, and holding meant moving. Reilly met my eye across the circle. No flinch, just that stubborn set to his jaw. Tex, the squad's new shadow, fitting in with O'Brien's lot like he'd always been there. Shared smokes with their barman, a lanky kid from Boston who called him Hillbilly, with a grin that didn't sting. We geared light. Extra mags scrounged from the platoon, frags in pouches, my M1 with a fresh boar snake run through to shake the frost. Reilly humped the bar now, Ruiz's old iron. Bipod folded, belt draped like a bandolier. Feels heavy, Sarge, he'd said when Flanagan handed it over. But he hefted it easy, cycling the action with a thunk that echoed our lost Sparky. No time for grief. War didn't pause for eulogies. We moved out at 0900, file single through the woods, boots soft in the needle duff, the river's murmur fading behind. Fog hung low, muffling sound, turning the world to cotton and whispers. O'Brien's platoon flanked wide, 20 strong, carbines and Thompsons chattering low as they bounded. Sherman's trailed a clickback, diesels idling to save fuel, their 76 milligrams hungry for revenge. The approach was a ghost of yesterday. Same gully, but quieter. The pyres burned to ash and slag. Snow melted to black craters that steamed faint in the chill. We crested the rim cautious, bellies low, binos sweeping, nests empty still, sandbags slumped like drunks, MG barrels cold. Bodies cleared, Jerry efficient, even in retreat. Clear, I whispered back, signaling advance. Reilly ghosted left, bar-sided, covering the draw. Kid moved different now. Less noise, steps placed, like he read the ground's secrets. Miner's eye, yeah. Back in the hollers, seams of coal, whispered where to swing the pick. Here, it was roots and ice. Traps, waiting under the white. We flowed down, occupying the bunkers hasty, me in the center one. Reilly taking the flank with a view of the tree line where the ghost had played. O'Brien's boys filtered in, stringing wire, setting tripods for the 30 cals. Eyes open, Flanagan barked. Ghost might have stung 'em, but stings heal. Noon crept in with a rumble. Distant at first, then building. Tracks, heavy ones. Panzers. Not the light stuff. The deep growl of Maybach engines. Treads chewing earth like teeth on bone. We glassed from the bunkers. 2 Panthers. Low-slung killers with the long 75s. Glacis sloped like lies you couldn't pierce. Infantry dismounting. Panzer Grenadiers. Black collars under Feldgrau. MP40s glinting as they fanned wide. Half-tracks trailed Sadkfz, 251s, offloading crates. Ammo probably, or demo charges for the road. The lead Panther nosed the crossroads, turret traversing slow, coax MG probing shadows. Spotters climbed aboard, binos up, calling to batteries we couldn't hear. If those 88s walked our line, Christ. Now contact. I keyed the radio. Flanagan's SCR 300 crackling live. Panthers closing infantry support. Request Artie, over. Static, then his voice. Negative, preacher. Batteries dry. Ammo train bogged 5 miles south. Sherman's ETA 20 mics. Hold and bleed 'em. Hold. Yeah. With rifles against armor? We had bazookas, 2 scrounged from the wrecks. But at this range, the warheads would bounce like spitballs. The Panthers halted short, 200 yards out, engines idling throaty. Infantry probed, fire teams bounding, grenades prepped, MGs on the half-tracks warmed up, barrels chattering bursts that stitched the snow short, kicking plumes our way. We answered. Reilly's bar thudding first, 30 rounds hosing the lead team, dropping 2 before they dove. My Garand cracked beside, ping of the clip, precise shots into the flank. O'Brien's platoon joined, Thompson's brapping, 30 cals ripping sustained from the bunkers. Hits landed, jerseys folding, screams faint on the wind. But the Panthers shrugged it, machine guns replying with that guttural buzz, rounds slamming sandbags, whining off logs, the air filled with it then. The zip of lead, the whomp of near misses, the sharp crack of Garands cycling. Psychological? Hell, it was a storm in your skull. Every whistle a promise of the end. Every impact a reminder you were meat under the tin. My leg throbbed with the recoil. Each shot a jolt up my spine, but I kept firing. Sighting deliberate. Breaths measured. Reilly was a rock beside me. Bar walking fire across the probe. Brass arcing into the bunker like golden rain. Reloading, he'd call. Belts slapping home smooth, no hitch. Kid had the rhythm now. Trigger time turning shakes to steel. But numbers told. Jerry had 40, us 20, ragged. Half-tracks closed, MGs pinning flanks, forcing O'Brien's boys low. A Panther traversed. 75 meets her muzzle yawning black and boomed, shell shrieking flat into our center bunker. Blast wave hit like a fist. Logs splintering, dirt fountaining high enough to blind. Screams. 2 down, buried under the collapse. Flanagan roared over the radio, "Bazooka teams up! Flank the cats!" But flank? Open ground, snow churned to mud, MGs raking anything that twitched. One team rose. Boston kid with the tube, loader fumbling the rocket. Fired wild. Warhead glancing off the Panther's turret ring, sparking harmless. Return. Coax MG stitching them down. Bodies jerking like puppets with cut strings. No graphic, just still. The fight going on without him. My gut twisted, the old knife. Boys under you paying for Brass's maps. Ike was back in Reims, plotting with Monty and the frogs, while we bled for inches. Bradley'd get it. The infantry's general, knowing the cost of every pin moved. But knowing didn't stop the shells. The second Panther advanced. Treads grinding deliberate, crushing wire like thread. Infantry surged behind. Panzerfausts shouldered, rockets ready for our bunkers. 20 yards to the nests. Our nests, empty and waiting. If they mounted those MGs, done. "Tex," I yelled over the din, slapping his shoulder. "The Rex, Sherman scrap, draw him in." He nodded, eyes sharp, understanding instant. The burned-out Shermans hulked off the flank, hulks from yesterday's Fausts, metal twisted and sooty. Cover, yeah, but more. Miner's mind. Soft spots given the ground. The craters from the Artie, melted slush under the pyres. He bellied out. Bar slung, E-tool in hand like a talisman. I covered, Garand barking, dropping a grenadier midlob. His stick grenade tumbling short. Jerry smelled blood. Infantry shifting our way. MP40s, popping bursts that tugged at my sleeve. The Panther followed, turret locked on our bunker, coax chattering to suppress. Reilly ghosted low, using the smoke from the old fires, vanishing into the haze like he'd never been. Kid was a shadow now, no clanks, no squeaks. Just gone. I fired till empty, clip ping, slap home another. Thoughts practical. Hold the line, buy him time. Flanagan's voice crackled. "Sherman's inbound, 10 mics. Hold, damn you!" Hold, yeah. O'Brien's boys fought grim, Thompson's emptying mags, frags arcing back to scatter probes. Losses mounted. A 30-gunner slumped over his tripod, feed silent. Boston Kid's loader crawling back, arm trailing a red furrow in the snow. Psychological toll? Heavy. The fear gnawing, whispering you're next, the line thinning like smoke. The Panther closed. 50 yards. Glacis impenetrable. Treads churning craters to slurry. Infantry fanned wide. Fausts up. Eyes on our holes. One fired rocket whooshing flat, impacting the bunker wall with a thud boom that shook my teeth. Sandbags burst, dirt cascading, but held just. Return fire slacked. Ammo low, barrels hot. The tank halted, turret swiveling slow, 75mm probing for the kill shot. Endgame. I keyed the last clip home, bayonet fixed under the muzzle. Steel for the crew if they bailed. But bail? Panthers didn't bail easy. Flanagan, bailing, I radioed, voice flat. Static hissed back. Negative. Sherman's dry on fuel, bogged in the draw. You're it. It? Yeah. The Panthers gunner sighted, muzzle steady on our door. Boom, pending. Thoughts flashed. Ohio farm, Ma's voice calling supper. Sicily beaches, waves red. The squad's ghosts. Malone's squint, Ruiz's hum. Doc's hands. Reilly? Out there, playing minor with death. Kid's spark, stubborn, coal-hard, flickered in my mind. Preparation meets opportunity, he'd said. It started then. From the Panther's rear, the engine deck, sloped and vented, a sharp ping. Garand, clean, high. The commander in the cupola jerked, binos clattering, slumping over the hatch. No details, just down. The tank slewing sudden as the driver reacted. Shouts from the crew, muffled inside, hatches popping frantic. But before they cleared, another sound. Frag spoon ping, then whoosh, Reilly's pineapple. Arc perfect from the wreck's shadow. Landed amidships, blast erupting under the turret ring. Orange bloom lifting the whole rear a foot. Flames licking vents. The engine caught, diesel woofing black, smoke billowing thick as a curtain. Crew bailed. 3 shadows tumbling, cut down by O'Brien's Thompsons before they hit snow. The Panther ground to a halt. Treads spinning futile, secondary pops from ammo cooking in the hold. Infantry froze. Heads whipping rear, MP40s swinging wild. Scharfschütze, I'm heck! Sniper rear. Panic rippled again, just like the ghosts work. But this? Close, personal. The second Panther reversed. Treads churning back, turret traversing to cover, but too slow. From the slush crater beside the first wreck, Reilly rose like Lazarus, E-tool discarded. Hands black with dirt and demo cord. He'd mined it. Soft spot from the old Artie. Crater walls honeycombed with Sherman's scrap he'd wedged in the night before. No, smarter. Scavenged TNT from the half-track crates yesterday. Buried shallow under the pyre ash. Date cord trailed to a clacker in the wreck. Miner's trick. Know the give, pack the punch. He yanked the handle. Crack of the cap. Then, boom, charge erupted under the Panther's flank. Right in the bogey. Treads shearing like tin. The whole side lifting in a geyser of snow and steel. The tank slewed sideways. Turret jamming against a stump. 75 millimeters firing wild into the air. Smoke poured from the belly. Crew bailing, panicked into the kill zone. Flanagan's 30 cals ripping them down. The half-tracks bolted, engines revving high. MGs spraying suppressive into the nothing. But Reilly wasn't done. From his crouch, bar up. Thud, thud, thud. 30 rounds hosing the lead vehicle's rear deck. Hit the fuel cans, lashed there. Spark, then chain fire. The half-track blooming full, veering off-road into a drift where it stalled. Flames eating canvas. The second followed suit. Driver spooked, swerving into the open where O'Brien's frags waited. Thump blasts scattered the dismounts. Survivors scattering east, tails between legs. No routeful, just broken. The push evaporating like fog under sun. Silence fell ragged. Echoes fading, only the crackle of fires and moans of the hit. We surged, then. O'Brien's boys bounding forward, rifles covering the wrecks. I limped out, M1 ready, leg protesting but ignored. The crossroads ours again, Panthers smoking hulks, blocking the road like fallen gods. Infantry fled, Fausts dropped in the snow, their probe a memory. Shermans, late to the party, rumbling up to claim the kills, but we didn't care. Held, bled 'em dry. Reilly stood amid the slush, bar smoking, face streaked with soot and sweat. Hands shook now, post-fight letdown. But eyes met mine, steady across the craters, no words needed. He nodded, short, sharp, the kid who'd frozen under shells, fumbled his sling, dug half-assed holes. Transformed. Not hero poster boy, but soldier. Practical, gritty, the ground's whisper turned weapon. Miner's son, explosives new, fortifications felt. That ghost, him all along. Solo after the wire snap, circling rear, picking shots, planning charges in the dark. Preparation, scavenging demo, trailing cord through the night. Opportunity, the push, the soft spots. Luck? Nah. Earned. I closed the gap, boots crunching ash, the squad, O'Brien's now ours, watching quiet. Flanked him, clapped his shoulder, firm, the weight of it saying what words wouldn't. Respect, full measure. No speeches, no brass stars, just the nod back. His, mine, locked. Good work, Tex, I said, low enough for him alone. Voice rough, but true. He grinned faint, wiping his brow with a grimy sleeve. Ground talked loud today, Sarge. Yeah, it did. Afternoon turned to mop-up. Bodies tagged for graves, wrecks marked for salvage, wire restrung hot to battalion. Hargrove came over, personal. LT's eyes wide under that mustache. Map case forgotten. Preacher, the report, 2 Panthers, half-tracks? I shrugged, lighting a Chesterfield, the flame steady in the wind. Tex here, miner's magic. Reilly shifted, humble. But the squad murmured. Boston kid clapping his back, Flanagan nodding gruff. Word spread quick, latrine kid, wire ghost, now tank buster. Nickname stuck. Digger, half joke, half prayer. Evening brought relief. Patton's columns closing the pinch, BBC crackling on a fresh battery. Allies converging on the Bulge salient. Von Rundstedt's offensive shattered. Shattered, yeah. We sat around the fire, greenwood spitting sparks, stew bubbling from the Sherman cooks. New faces filled the gaps, greenhorns wide-eyed, vets like Flanagan spinning yarns. Reilly fit seamless, passing the canteen, showing e-tool grips to the boots. I dig where it gives, fellas. Saves your hide. I watched from the edge, smoke curling, leg propped on a crate. Thoughts practical. Ammo counts, patrol rotates, the line holding. Grief? Banked low. The squad's ghosts visited in quiet. Malone sighting eternal, Ruiz humming faint. But forward, always. Reilly caught my eye across the flames. Raised his mug, silent toast. I returned it, the nod lingering. Night deepened, stars pricking cold, wind sighing through the pines. The Bulge ground on Jerry probes, our counters, but we held. Me and Tex, shoulders to the wheel. Transformation? Yeah, from burden to brother, green to grit. War's forge, hot, unyielding. But it shaped true. Later, when the fire died to coals and the squad snored fitful, I pulled the flask, Kentucky bourbon, contraband from a supply drop. Slid over beside him in the dark, the cold, nipping fingers. Not here, I said, pressing it into his palm. No words more. He took it, sipped slow, the burn cutting the chill, then passed back. Shared, accepted. In the morning, we'd move again. But for now, brothers in the freeze, eagles screaming still,